Is it on the list of crazy fetishes the worst thing that anyone can have? And I got to tell you, I hate to break it to you. So many more people than you think have foot fetishes. So many more people.
Is this how you're breaking it to me?
That I don't have a foot fetish, but I'm telling you, a lot of people out there do, and maybe some of our listeners.
Wait, do you know why?
So, guess
do you know why?
What do you mean? Why people have foot fetishes?
This could be totally a wives' tale.
You're going to explain to the good people of the Be Mean Fast Forward audience why they have a foot fetish?
In your brain, there's the sex
classic
part,
elitist,
and then there's like the foot
bullshit.
part. And sometimes...
Wait, what? Welcome back to the Be Mean Fast Forward podcast. My name is Charlie Jake Sanchez.
My name is Kat Solko.
I have seen a lot of movies.
And I have not.
We are here to watch and discuss Quentin Tarantino's 2009 Inglourious Basterds.
Inglourious Basterds.
Kat, what do you know about Inglourious Basterds?
Are we lying?
No. No, so we were
I was
lying.
about to be like, are we lying? No, I have seen Inglourious Basterds.
Apropos of nothing, we're watching Inglourious Basterds this week.
Yeah.
For absolutely no reason.
No
Don't
therapeutic
read into it.
reason.
Don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Or
No thematic
think
reason.
about it a lot. Think about it a lot.
Nothing on the news.
Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
Kat, what do you think about Inglourious Basterds?
I freaking love it.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good romp.
Mm-hmm.
It's the genre of films that he does that is like
A
fiction.
virtual history, historical fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I like those. I said it before and I'll say it again.
Histories.
Alternate histories.
Yeah.
I think they're very cathartic. I think they're fun to watch. You know, me as a Jewish person, go back to the first video episode. Uh-huh. Casually. I'd never had a bat mitzvah. I'm sorry, God.
Culturally
I'm culturally
very
Jewish.
Culturally Jewish.
Super culturally Jewish, raised by a very Jewish mom. You know what I'm saying? And love you, Cheryl.
A lot of guilt in that house. I'm just kidding, Cheryl. That's Catholics and Jews. We
I know, and I got him up both sides. My dad was raised Catholic, but he wasn't. He's an atheist.
We have a lot of shared guilt and shame amidst the two of us. And Bug has a lot of shame. Pug shame. Anyway.
I was about to say Bug is shameless. I don't know if he feels that emotion.
Back to Puglorious Bastards.
Oh my God. So I like watching Hitler get shot in the face 100 times.
So do I.
I just like it.
And
honestly, like, it doesn't have to be deeper than that. It is, but it doesn't have to be. Like, I like it. I like watching it. I feel good watching this movie. Start to finish, almost 99%.
99.99%, would you say?
999.999 times out of a million. Yeah, apropos of nothing on the news, we felt like it was important to watch it this week and share it with all of you, share our thoughts. And I get to watch one of my favorites again.
This was when we watched this, I believe it was just like a week or two before we started the podcast. Actually.
Yeah, basically.
And it was one of those movies where we were going through a list of things that I think Kat wanted to watch before a project that we were working on. And so we sat down and watched it, and like throughout that whole week watched like 3 or 4 movies. And then it was like, hey, we talk about this after the watching the movie. Should we just like record a podcast?
Should we just record ourselves talking?
So I would say the genesis of this podcast began around Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah,
I think it began a lot earlier in our relationship, but Inglourious Basterds had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. We had just basically had an hour-long discussion after we watched it.
So
that I don't remember any of it, so it's going to be great to watch again.
Inglourious Basterds. This movie came out in 2009. Quentin Tarantino had just gone through this terrible, like, problematic production with Grindhouse, and it was a slog, and it was crazy. And so he talks about in interviews how this next one he wanted to like attack the movie and be like forceful and bold and energetic, and it is completely
nailed it
across the movie entirely.
Yeah.
And this was 7 years or 5 years since Kill Bill Volume 2, and had Grindhouse in between that. The genesis of this was like he had written in 1998 and 1999, and the Shoshana character was way more of a vengeful, violent story where she was like getting revenge, kind of like what the Bastards are doing. But he put off this when he realized the story was too big to be a movie. It was like more novelistic, and he put a lot of that revenge plot into Kill Bill.
Oh, gotcha.
So the bride character is a lot of what Shoshana was supposed to do. And so he had to rejigger it when it came back time and created this other plot line with Shoshana and the cinema and everything that came to be. And Shoshana ended up becoming more like Jackie Brown. And Jackie Brown as a character is way more poised. And so the revenge stuff is there, but she has a lot of like quiet dignity instead of this like crazy looking out for revenge sort of plot.
This is like my favorite Brad Pitt performance.
Sure.
I also think Christoph Waltz might be my spirit animal. We both are just silly, goofy little guys. Like, I don't know what to say about that. I just feel very kindred spirit coming from Waltz towards me specifically, and only me. And I'm special. And I just really like most of Quentin's writing, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I want to talk to you about some of the things I didn't love, but the point of this movie is like, I like how it's structured. I like the 5 acts, right?
Yeah,
5?
I believe so.
And
chapters,
and how you feel like you're in good hands, you know? Like every scene or chapter is like intentional and has a very like specific place in the story and in the plot. And it's also like a very classical writing style, almost like very much like scenes in a play, basically.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about your relationship to Tarantino. What other movies have you watched of his?
Django.
We watched it on the podcast.
Kill Bill, I think I've seen, but I don't really remember.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I feel like Kill Bill, if you had watched it, you would remember.
No, I have watched it, but it blends together a lot.
Huh.
Like, I remember not being wholly satisfied with Kill Bill.
You watched
mainly
both
the
parts?
Bill part.
Well, yeah, that I understand that. Actually, that is
That's a very me thought.
Sure. You were disappointed in a man. I mean,
first time ever.
That's
That never happens. It rarely happens now that I've met you, my love.
Wow, that is really sweet. I just tossed it up there for you.
Yeah, and I just went,
wait, did you just do volleyball?
That was more like a badminton. I don't know.
I was doing a baseball metaphor.
I was doing
and you were doing a
pickleball metaphor.
We don't play pickleball.
We don't play any sports.
That's great. I just want to say, like, Perrier Le Petit, the farmer in the opening of this, that's the most French name ever. Like, it's like, Perrier
Le Petit.
I've worked with creative directors with exactly the same vibe as Christoph Waltz in this movie. Waltz, my first time watching it this time, feeling Le Petit offer the wine to him, and the wine, like, almost like it's being polite, but it's also as a way of like maybe
taking his guard down,
maybe putting him in a different state to where he would not do his job as
well. Yeah.
And then he orders the milk, and he's done his research. This is the cow farm. This is...
Yeah, Le Petit's eyes are so expressive in this scene. It's like, I don't know if it's shot old school style or lit old school style. I don't even know what I mean by that, but like his eyes are like highlighted the whole time, and he's so stoic and unemotional, but you can read the emotion.
Well, it's what that thing we were talking about with Django and Robert Richardson's top light, and the light, like the fire starter hitting the table and lighting up the entire, highlighting them. And so it's so gorgeous, and there's just like a nice haze in the air, and it really does feel like it's a farmhouse.
Yeah.
And very lived in. And just the way he operates in that room, he comes in and he like surveys the girls, and he
Yeah.
gets the milk and drinks the milk whole all together. Yeah, you were right. You're just a little freaky.
Sounds like a dream.
Little freaky guys like milk. I mean,
I have a big question. I had it the first time we watched, and I have it now. Why is Leah Sadu there? And why doesn't she have more to
2009.
do?
I don't. Leah Sadu. Why didn't she have more to do?
It throws me every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Both times now I've watched it. It feels like she's almost like another Jew that they've been hiding because she's the only one with blonde hair in that whole family.
Yeah.
She gets all the close-ups.
She's Leah Sadu.
I know, but then why not give her more?
It's the same. It's kind of like the same thing when he's talking about the Pitzpalu movie, and he's like, "My brother was so handsome that Pabst gave him a close up." That's exactly the thing that's happening in that scene.
Leah Sadu
is getting the close up.
Had done
probably the Harry Potter at that point, maybe. Yeah,
Harry Potter. She's not in Harry Potter.
Wrong one. Who's in Harry Potter?
The other French woman.
Oh yeah, I'm confusing the two.
I don't remember her name.
Leah Sadu was she wasn't in the James Bond movie yet.
She was in this famous French sapphic film. I can't remember the name of
Louis
it.
Lormis Color
Louis
is
Lormis
like
Color.
2013 or 12 or something like that. It's not.
I thought it was earlier than that.
No. This is before that.
So you're saying
sure.
Quentin discovered Leah Sadu?
I mean, Quentin, you go to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and half of that cast are unbelievable discoveries. Austin
Mikey
Butler,
Madsen now.
Margaret Qualley, Mikey Madison, Sydney Sweeney's in that movie. It's fucking murderer's row of casting. So, shout out his casting.
It throws me every single time, and I'm like, is there a deleted scene? Also, I'm sorry.
Also, are you complaining that Leah Sadu's in the movie?
I'm complaining that she doesn't have more to do. More to Sadu.
Look,
also,
there could only be one Shosh in this movie, and that's the Shoshana we got.
I love Leah Sadu, apparently.
Yeah,
more than
clearly.
I thought I did. I hate to be this guy.
Okay, be that guy.
And let me preface
I hate to be this guy proceeds to be this guy.
Let me preface this by saying I've never chopped wood in my life.
I have no idea where you're going with this. Is he doing it a little gay?
What? That guy was chopping wood super gay. No. I'm confused though. Okay. Someone explain it to me, please. Aren't you supposed to have like the tree stump that you chop wood on and then you put a log on top of the tree stump? It looks to me like he's just hacking away at the tree stump.
Oh.
Unless that's the log that he's chopping, but it's taking so many chops.
This is hilarious. I was wondering what the first thing you wrote down on your notebook
it was.
was.
Like
and it was
2 seconds in, and I was like, wait a second, he's missing wood.
I hadn't even like looked up, and I thought the credits were still going, and you're like writing down before anything happens, and I'm like, what was she? Yeah.
Okay, I could
Chop
be dead.
wood,
I could be
water.
dead wrong. I am dead wrong about this, but please someone explain to me like I'm 5 because I don't understand what he was doing, and it almost threw me. Having said that, tangent aside, the opening shot where she's hanging up the line and then she hears it and then pulls back and the cars are there.
Absolutely
So
brilliant.
cool.
The rat metaphor
Yeah.
is the greatest distillation of anti-Semitism
Yeah.
from the perspective of an anti-Semitic person.
Yeah.
Of this, like, just don't know why I hate this person, but I hate them. And
They're not any different than a
squirrel or a
another
raccoon
vermin that you tolerate slightly more.
Yeah.
But you hate them.
You just hate them. You can't explain it.
They repulse you.
And it's a brilliant piece of writing by Quentin for going like, why do people hate these people?
Or even just like people do.
Yeah.
Like not even why.
Yeah.
But the question there, he's not asking
That's
why.
true,
He's
that's
saying
true.
no one knows why.
Yeah.
They just do.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's horrifying. And La Petite. Oh, I've noticed this time La Petite has a cross hanging over his door, and so they're a Christian household.
But I also heard in the writing this time that like there were you could infer that he took them in because they were dairy farmers like him, and they were probably friends.
There were like 5 other families in the
and like 4 of them were Jewish.
Well, yeah, that's I mean, you see him performing in that moment where he's like, what were their names?
Right.
How many
How
were
old
there?
were they
And he's kind of like pretending he doesn't know, or the names aren't coming to him as quickly as they probably will. They're probably so familiar to him, and it's that you know, part where he points out the places on the floor and the tear falls. It's like he's signing their death warrant. These are people who he's, you know, that he watched grow up, it's just so horrifying. And Londa, you know, his whole like big sweeping performance being like, all right, ladies, come on in. The SS being right there. They do this
All
so
the time.
much.
That's their rhythm.
Because he nails it.
Yeah.
Because he always gets it.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of background. Quentin had him pull out this pipe and smoke that pipe throughout the movie. And it was very like a Sherlock Holmes-y thing. And then he, I think, was talking to Waltz and he was like, do you think he's just like, sometimes I just like to ask actors questions. It's like, do you think he actually should smoke, like, and smoke throughout the thing? Or do you think he maybe did research and on the guy and knows that he smokes and would have this pipe as a bit of like Sherlock Holmes fuckery, like I know what's going on, and also like as like obviously a metaphor for like whatever else, but this like bit of theater of like the reveal of like, I got you, like I got this down, like you can kind of, and that's the part where he starts to really fall apart, Le Petit, in that moment. And Christoph Waltz was like, yeah, that I love that. He's like, that he doesn't smoke, he actually like did his research and he brought in this big pipe, and he so it's all this this idea of Waltz as the detective really just like going the long way because he can.
I like that part of the character, and I also like that he at the end of the day is as self-preservational as everyone else.
Well, yeah.
But he's just smarter about it. He's smarter than everyone else in the room. Everyone. But at the same time, he doesn't catch everything. You know, like there's a way to make the character fallible, which he has to be in order to not catch Shoshana when he meets her again, you know?
Well, sure, but that's always such the great like unspoken thing in this movie. One of the unspoken things of this movie is why he necessarily pulls away his gun and lets her go. Like why, when he sees her again, he orders her milk. Like there's this like Tarantino again in an interview with Charlie Rose was talking about these little MacGuffins in the movies that he places, and people are always like, oh, I wish I knew what that thing was, like definitively. And he's like, yeah, but what I really appreciate is that 3 different people can watch my movie and have 3 different interpretations of it. And if I told you what it was, and so he said, so 3 different people can watch 3 different movies if they want to, basically. Like they're watching 3 different movies. And if I tell you what it is, it takes away any imagination or mystery. And it's fun to have that be a thing. I mean, sure, it's fun as the creator, but it's also fun as the audience member that they have their own specific headcanon, is what we call it now. But that is kind of like a great mystery to me, is why does he let her go? Why does he order the milk?
Yeah,
again?
now that you say that,
does he
maybe
recognize her? But it's almost like his
at the end of the day, like, I was thinking, well, now my headcanon is like, well, maybe he just respects people who like fight for their life.
Yeah.
And he saw how fast she was running. He was like, I could shoot her. I could hit her. I'm not gonna.
The same way he respects the bastards.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, wow, these guys. Later on, he's having that conversation with them. He's just like, we're clearly not operating on the same level of mutual respect. I thought we had mutual respect.
He's pouting. He meets her in that cafe, and he has that moment where you're like, she's caught. And then he goes, can't remember what I was going to ask you.
He goes, I have just one more question for you. And it gets really intense, and he's just like staring. I forgot. You know.
And in that moment, you could say, like, he decided, no.
Yeah.
Not today.
Sure.
Not tomorrow. Whatever.
Or whatever the reasoning is fascinating. And it that character is, I'm sorry, I keep quoting Tarantino because I just watched something where I think I watched the Charlie Rose interview in whole, and he was talking about he tries not to judge the morality of his characters. He prefers to write them as complicated as they are, as they come out. And he used the example of the SS officer that they capture, and Donnie ends up beaten to death with a bat.
Right.
And that guy is doing
super interesting guy.
Doing an incredibly heroic thing from his perspective.
Yes.
And if it was an American or if it was one of the bastards doing the same thing, we would, like have feelings for him. And you do have sort of like a humanity, an empathy for that guy. But it's also, that's a Nazi.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing with Waltz's character at the end being like, no, at the same time, he's choking. I mean, look, we're getting into like spoilers. We've been talking about spoilers the whole time, but he's choking von Hammersmark. And the next minute, he's trying to sell out the Nazis.
Yeah.
And
he still seems to be pissed at her for turning
yes.
coat while actively turning coat.
Correct. And that complication is so interesting and leads me to believe that there is some sort of, I don't know, some sort of thing in him that recognizes Shoshana, that recognizes something in her that he doesn't want to kill her. Mm-hmm. And it just it lends itself to being just an incredibly rewatchable character, or like recontextualized every time you watch it.
Sure.
I think I talked for a long time right there.
We're out here killing Nazis. I'm obsessed.
Nazi ain't got no humanity.
With Brad Pitt in this movie. I haven't been obsessed with Brad Pitt in any movie. Ever.
Well,
maybe when I was young and like Mr. and Mrs. Smith was on and I was like having some kind of awakening. But that could have been about anything about that movie. You know? Probably Angelina Jolie. If I'm being honest. This performance is written so well. And then he did take a big swing, which I like always am like waiting for Brad Pitt to take a bigger swing.
Your main problem with Moneyball was that you felt like he didn't take a big enough swing.
With like everything I've seen him in, yeah. And that's not to say that he doesn't do his characters very well, but he always picks the same characters is kind of my issue.
You're worried every time we watch a Brad Pitt movie, this is what's happening. Moneyball is like the classic example of this, is that you think he's just being too cool. He's playing it too cool.
Yeah.
And
this one he plays it cool, obviously, but so funny.
Yeah.
And such an interesting character that is written for him to do, but then also the way that he chews the lines up and spits them out in this hilarious accent.
Yeah.
Makes, gives you everything you need to know about him.
I think this quoted either Tarantino or Charlie Rose from the interview was saying that that character is the only character who's incapable of being anyone but himself.
Yeah, like, literally. Buongiorno.
Only capable of being anyone but himself. But yeah, it's he just can't.
Grazie.
Yeah, he doesn't pretend to be anyone. Like Waltz is playing a different person. Shoshana is playing a different person. Brule at times, Zoller is playing a different person, and Brad Pitt is so. Aldo Rain the whole time.
Yeah, so good.
Paul Rust is a bastard.
Paul
Rust, the comedian Paul Rust, is a fucking bastard. And I never noticed. And he's right there, dead center of most of the scenes. And so, what a great job that must have been. I know you're like not speaking a lot, and BJ Novak is like the only one that's heavily featured, and obviously Donnie, Eli Roth.
I love that Quentin, pairs like really low scenes like right before really high scenes, you know what I'm saying? Like he'll make you suffer and then he'll reward you for it, like by giving you chapter 2, which is the most hilarious. Like I want to just read that script, the way that it's written, how he says it, and then it's one of those scripts that makes me excited to be an actor and like want to say those words. Yeah. That's always a really special moment that doesn't happen very often, and it's always for me with like scripts that are written musically and like have a musicality to it. You can hear someone say it while you're reading it. Sometimes like you read a script and you're like, this could be said a million different ways and I have to choose. But certain scripts, you're like, this is how it's done.
The Tarantino scripts, Coen Brothers scripts, there's musicality to it that you just can't. There's almost like one way to play a character. I know that's not necessarily true. Like even in this
there's
one,
little nuance, but there's a right way to play this character.
They were doing the table read for this, and Brad Pitt said the buongiorno, and everybody went ape shit.
Yeah.
And Tarantino was like, well, now I can't hear the fucking line any other way.
Yeah.
He thought he would be a little bit better.
No.
Brad Pitt was like, that southern accent's really hard to.
The best part about that scene, and I know we're skipping ahead, but is that he speaks the most Italian with the worst accent. The Donnie guy, or no, it's the other guy.
Yeah, I forgot.
The Bear Jew guy speaks.
That's Donnie, Antonio
the middle
Margheriti.
amount of Italian with the middle worst accent. And then the guy who speaks no Italian has the best fake Italian accent. And it's like, it's Three Stooges level comedy.
Bravo. The back. It's amazing. The painter in the background of the Hitler scene, painting Hitler and like holding out his thumb to look. How's Hitler looking right now? Was unbelievable. There were a lot of background stuff that I noticed this time. A lot of the bastard acting.
Is the narrator Samuel L. Jackson?
Samuel Jackson comes in.
My guy Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Didn't remember that there was a narrator at all. That's really funny.
Eli Roth is yoked as the Bear Jew. I was like, I forgot. Eli Roth at the time was the director of Hostel, a friend of Quentin, and like kind of just seemed like a regular kind of dude, skinny. I think was the impression. Now rewatching it for like the 15th time, I'm like, that dude is like jacked.
He probably got jacked for this part.
Absolutely.
That whole sequence where the commanding officer walks up to Brad Pitt in slow-mo and like starts, there's like Western music that starts and he gives such a great weight to that person that we meet for 10 seconds and then he dies. And then the weight he gives to the Bear Jew coming out of the cave, basically. And then he's just this like guy from Boston. He's got the
Teddy Williams accent.
Or New York or whatever.
Has that accent.
And you're like, oh, I know that kind of guy. And hell yeah. Beating people with bats.
One of my favorite things is like the ad-libs of the bastards cheering in the background. It's so funny. Or like he'll say an insult to German officer and they're just like, oh, like just like joking around in the background.
And all of the specific German jokes that just trip off of Brad Pitt's tongue.
Yeah. Your schnitzel licking finger.
Wiener schnitzel licking fanger.
Yeah, fanger.
Anglish. What is it? What did I say? Sauerkraut sandwich eater.
If you ever want to eat a sauerkraut sandwich again, you're gonna point out
sandwich.
Sandwich.
I love it. He goes, German wants to die for country. Oblige him.
Oblige him.
And it's a perfect type of character that I love that has the most like rough, crude, like accent. You have so many assumptions, and then he has the vocabulary of like a poet.
1,000%.
Perfect trope. I love that trope.
Very Shakespeare.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is frankly, watching Donnie beat Nancy's death is the closest we get to going to the movies.
Yeah.
Like it's the funniest like musicality that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
But that burn his uniform and marking his head is. We live in a world where we don't know who the Nazis are anymore, or the Nazis are gaslighting us into thinking who is and who isn't, and that wasn't a this and that wasn't a that.
But then at the same time, they're like going to Nazi rallies.
Of course, but there's no clear.
Well, they can just say they're not.
Right.
They can go to a Nazi rally and then go, but I'm not a Nazi, and then you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
But that's the thing about seeing something in real time, like we did the other day, is I almost would rather know. I would rather know. If you're gonna go and be like that, do it. Like, be out and about it, because it makes it clear who.
That's what they want. That's what they don't want, though. They don't want it to be clear until it's too late.
That's like they're starting to make it a little clear.
Yeah,
and
which is crazy
yeah.
because, you know, to my mind, it's too early, you know, but they're
would
so
think.
confident.
Well, they're emboldened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're also stupid.
And so I just thought that was such a brilliant. I mean, it was a lot of what happened after World War II. Nazis going to South America and hiding out and being found out or not. And
there was this like TikTok I saw a while ago about a girl who was applying for a job, and she was like, the person who was hiring me was like, "Oh, so you're from Venezuela?" And she was like, "Yeah." And you speak German. She's like, I knew she wanted to ask me if my grandpa was a Nazi, and he wasn't. I swear, I just took German in college.
A lot of Germans.
It's like, you can't.
A lot of Germans in Mexico.
Yeah.
A lot of Germans in a lot of places. And yeah. And also another detail that I caught this time, and I don't know why I hadn't before. Maybe I did and I just forgot. Was the Pitzpalu movie that he's talking about is on the marquee. It's being featured as part of the German night. You know, that she's pulling down, and she's like, well, I didn't really have a choice.
Right.
As Zoller is talking to her.
So many scenes in this movie were just like an ode to movies.
I mean, that's another thing he said was just like, he's like, I thought I was making a war movie. It turns out I was making another movie, love letter to cinema. Like,
yeah, literally, he can't stop himself from highlighting the beauty of changing the film rolls and shit.
Or like
editing.
What's his name? Michael Fassbender's character being a film critic turned spy is just another.
And the reason he gets the job, he gets the mission, is because he knows the 1-to-1 between Goebel and
David O. Selznick instead of Louis B. Mayer, like Churchill is implying. He's like, brief him.
He passed.
I'm French. We respect directors in my country. This is the first time that I've ever loved the French.
Charlie, notorious fan of the French.
I'm a big Francophile. I love those people. Hey, look, if you're listening from France, thank you. I really appreciate it. Look, Americans have bad representation too.
Oh yeah, we don't have to prove that.
I said this is how most women feel meeting film bros.
I literally wrote film boys flirting, aka talking to themselves.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
He's getting less than 0. He's getting negative. He's getting negative feedback. And he's like, well, I'll see you around.
It's film community down bad after that one. The film bro community down.
He
bad.
really Quentin nailed that character.
Yeah,
soft boy. Yeah, obsessed with his role in the movie. Obsessed.
Just absolutely brutal. Oh yeah, and the other SS officer, Gestapo officer, who's underneath Hans Landa, the one who's in the bar, who comes and gets her, and she's like, what is this all about? And he says, get your ass in the car. And then when they're at the actual in front of Goebbels, he's like so polite and so lovely to her.
Yeah.
And he does it again, the switch in the tavern where he's just like, shut up, slut.
Yeah.
After
great psychopath.
It's absolutely perfect. No, but Landa is this terrible, terrible villain. But he's like weirdly complicated, and that guy is not. That guy is the
evil
German
Nazi,
officer, and that guy killed it. I forgot that actor's name. I really like him a lot.
The cafe scene where she's smoking and reading a book,
and he comes and interrupts.
There's people who talk to him in German, and she doesn't. There's no subtitles, because she's not sure what they're saying.
Yeah,
great. And then in the other cafe, the restaurant scene, I guess, you get the subtitles in German because that would be way too complicated. But
sure, it's a lot of exposition.
Another scene where there's just like incredible. You're watching every single cut because the way that he makes movies is that he'll tell you what's going on if you watch. You know, if you watch closely, he'll like absolutely be telling you everything you need to know. And my favorite part, which I know we both loved, is he the end of the scene, Landa leaves and she like breathes for like the first time the whole scene.
One of my favorite things, and it was just we were just watching like this, every frame of painting, and they were talking about like where you put the camera, and he did the exact same thing that they were featuring Soderbergh in that video essay. Was Landa comes in, and you see it's Landa, and you're like, the Landa drop in, and the music comes in, and it's so intense. And watching it for the first time, you feel the same way. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
But the great part of that, what you're talking about, that storytelling aspect, is it stays on her down there. He's like right here in his midriff, and there are midriffs, and they're all around her. But all you need to see is her reaction of what's going on around her. Brilliant. Tarantino gets a lot of credit for his scripts, but he's one of the great visual storytellers of our time. And that sort of thing is all about the character, and the most important thing is like, how does she feel in this moment? And then they have their beautiful little wait for the creme, and does he recognize her and does he not? And
there's like, maybe I'm getting better at this. Quentin Tarantino did this twice. The first scene with Landa, and then this restaurant scene where it's shot very kind of a little bit set back and like very casual. And then when he starts grilling, it's like the close-up is so crisp and so like well lit and like stays on his eyes.
It's a special, really.
Yeah, it's a special. And I noticed that in both scenes where your whole like body just goes like, oh no, oh no. And then he goes, I don't know. I don't remember what I was going to ask you. Oh,
and then so he leaves, and then that exhale that you're talking about is incredibly powerful. And she's so good in this movie. What's her name again? Oh, Melanie Laurent. Laurent. She's so good in this movie. And that's the thing that I come back to, I think, as I watch it more and more, is she's one of my favorite performers in the movie. When she figures it out that they're going to do the premiere there and everything, Tarantino's confirmed this. She knows she's going to die. She knows she's going to commit suicide.
Oh, really?
Yeah, whether or not she knows that she's probably going to die in the act of killing these people, and she's resigned to it. It's like the great revenge that she could get is doing this thing. And everyone else, I think, is kind of like thinking they can get out of it. But Shoshana is the one person in the movie who's like resigned to her fate of this is how she can get it back. And yeah, it's beautifully rendered.
I didn't get that.
It's beautifully rendered. It wasn't rendered for
It didn't render for my brain because I wanted that.
That's what you want, though.
Okay, but sometimes, listen, can I just
tell them what you want?
Here's my issue, my only issue with the movie. Why the fuck does she check on the stupid German guy?
So we're jumping way ahead, but
we can put this later.
in the opening, when in chapter 2 beginning, it says Nazis ain't got no humanity. She does. She has humanity. It's the first time it's hit me in this one, because I felt that before. Is like, why the fuck? It's so contrived. That's how I felt. And then this time I went like, you know what, man? She shot him. She thinks she's killed him. She's watching him on the screen give what actually looks to be a pretty like touching performance in that one moment, and then she hears him groan, and I think that is like the point. I think it's like she actually cares about people. She actually has humanity, and he does not. And that's I think what it's trying to do in that moment. Whether or not it rings false for you or not.
Maybe she does, but I don't. He just tried to like basically rape her.
Yeah.
And she shot him. Good for her, as well she should. And then she's like, oh, is he dead yet? No, of course he's not dead. He's a sharpshooter. He killed like 200 people. Yeah. Let him die.
I think it just complicates her in a way that like is...
Yeah, it complicates her. It makes her a good person. Yeah, she could have run away with her boyfriend. Right?
I don't think so. I think it would have been real tough for her to get out of that situation alive. I'm sorry. Sorry to break it to you.
Anyway, back to Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, this movie really, once it gets going, it zips. Because there's a lot of setup in that early, the first 2 chapters or maybe even 3. And then once like Fassbender's introduced, the movie's just like.
Yeah.
And
well, then at that point, the chapters become more like overarching as opposed to like, this is one scene. This is another scene.
Yeah. Well, you get the big, cellar scene. The big pub scene.
Awesome pub scene.
Incredible.
What's her face? Plays the German actress.
Diane Kruger.
She is doing great at that character too. Yeah. Like, give her flowers for being a double agent who used to be an actress, who still has to pretend she's an actress, who is naturally gifted at like charming people, and that's why she's a good double agent, because she's like very cooler than most of the men. When she's like, we can't leave right now. Yeah. We have to have a drink. What the fuck would we be doing here if we weren't getting a drink?
Or when he's like, does the Fraulein want me to leave? And she's just like,
no, of course not. She knows what to say. And then he's like, all right, let's play a game. She's like, let's play.
Every woman ever
knows how to manage men.
Yeah, around aggressive men.
Yeah. And she does it like an art form.
It's great. And that also another thing in that scene is Tarantino combining the King Kong slavery metaphor.
Yeah.
Spelling it out for people who are like, if you don't get it, King Kong's about slaves, about the African slave trade.
Probably like an argument he had with someone at a party once, and he was like, I'm gonna put this in a fucking movie.
Exactly.
So I can really
and it might be a problematic simplification, but I'm almost positive that was the point of King Kong by the creators of King Kong, was like, this was the thing about it. It was inhumane. It was not okay. And in the end, like, led to such terrible outcomes for everyone involved.
So what I'm asking in this whole plot to blow up Hitler, right, is wouldn't Hugo Stiglitz, right, be made when they walk in the door of the theater and Landa's there? I'm not saying that's a plot hole. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of what I like about the movie, is like, this is the only way it does work, and in every other alternate universe they get stopped blowing up Hitler. Yeah. But in this alternate history, this one pathway where a bunch of people fuck up is the one where Hitler ends up dying.
Landa has the fucking line with Aldo and the little man, and they're tied up.
They call me the little man?
They have the handcuffs on, and he says, "What shall the history books read?" Mm-hmm. And there's this look of silence, and it's this like Tarantino as the meta narrator being like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. And if you watch it for the first time and you don't know the twists or turns that are coming, you may not think that that's actually what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so when it does happen, it's this like cathartic, watching it the first time, you were pretty.
I mean, I always love stories that are like about how a decision can alter the course of history one way or the other, or your life one way or the other, or whatever. Like BioShock Infinite is like one of my favorite video games, and that is one of the biggest themes in that game, is like, you make certain choices and certain things are constant and certain things are variable. What if there was like a world where we blew up Hitler like a year early? Cool.
If you're a listener, a consistent listener to Beaming Fast Forward, Take a Shot, Kat mentioned BioShock.
Have I mentioned it before?
Oh yeah.
What do you mean? When?
A couple times.
No. Mm-hmm. No. We put a supercut in.
You know what? It's probably on the unreleased secret Fallout tapes.
Oh shit. We did attempt to do TV at one point on this podcast. We tried to do
Beaming TV, yeah.
We may still, when we have money.
We probably will. It's just a lot of commitment. I would love to have this be the full-time job, but guys,
we need sponsors for that, I think.
I'm a photographer,
I'm an actor.
I'm a digitech.
In the worst year for acting that has ever existed. Okay. I wrote foot with like 3 underlines. I know you're tired of this narrative. He perpetuates the narrative.
No, you don't understand. This is the thing.
I know he's not ashamed of it.
I don't disagree with how much he has the foot fetish. My whole point is that I don't disagree with how much he has a foot fetish.
Sure.
He has a foot fetish.
Yes, he does.
What I'm saying is it on the list of crazy fetishes the worst thing that anyone can have? And I got to tell you, I hate to break it to you. So many more people than you think have foot fetishes. So many more people.
Is this how you're breaking it to me?
That I don't have a foot fetish, but I'm telling you, a lot of people out there do, and maybe some of our listeners.
Wait, do you know why?
So, guess
do you know why?
What do you mean? Why people have foot fetishes?
This could be totally a wives' tale.
You're going to explain to the good people of the Beaming Fast Forward audience why they have a foot fetish?
In your brain, there's the sex
classic
part,
elitist,
and then there's like the foot
bullshit.
part. And sometimes...
Wait, what?
The wires get crossed, and that's why people specifically have a fetish for feet.
What is it?
There's like a part of your brain that's the sex brain part. And then I'm pretty sure from what I've read maybe once years ago is that there's like a part of your brain that deals with like body parts and feet, and they're very close together. And so sometimes maybe I'll look this up and it's completely wrong.
I think you should just do more research before you talk about
I like to talk. I like to talk, and then people can correct me. Otherwise, what I say is gospel. Uh-oh.
I treat things that you say as gospel. So basically, you just have to be careful because I'm very naive.
I mean, we have a friend, my old roommate Casey, who one time got mad at me because I was like, oh, if you lay on your left side, like you'll digest better. And she was like, you always say shit like that and it's never true. And I'm like, look that one up. I know that one's correct. And it was. If you lay on your left side, you digest better.
Oh, so maybe she's got something on. Anyway, what
Every
I'm trying
once
to
in a
say
while.
is we should not be shaming people with relatively harmless fetishes.
I'm not shaming him.
That's all
I just
I'm saying.
find it hilarious that he makes a point to put a foot in every single fucking movie
the
he
man makes movies for himself.
No shit.
On the record.
None of this porn engages me. Better make my own.
This is what I want to say, though. Is he often like objectifying women in traditional ways? It's really the only time he objectifies
I was gonna say,
women.
He really does autonomize a lot lot of female characters.
True. Yes, very true. I mean, that is like a massive part
especially
of
in this movie.
Narratives. You skipped over something that I really... Tarantino's hilarious. Stiglitz has the gun at the Nazi's balls, and he says, from this range, I'm a real Frederick Zoller. He's referencing his own character in the movie, like, as if it was a real... It's just great. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect French veterinarian in a sleeping cap in the background. It's
when she's like on the table
once
bleeding
again, the
out.
first time I've ever noticed it is like that guy, the veterinarian clearly who got woken up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
This guy has a sleeping cap on. Is absolutely French. He may not be French, but he feels French. The whole place feels
so
French.
And the woman SS officer who's drinking with her buddies is the most German woman.
Yeah.
Ever.
Look, they cast the hell out of this
movie.
movie.
They cast the most Germans I've ever seen.
So there are like, 3 or 4 plots that are converging in this movie, and it's all of them leading towards this big night where each of them has like a plan to either kill Hitler or whatever. And Landa is the unspoken plot line of like being ready to flip on the German government and being ready for this opportunity to come up and be like, actually, I need to find my exit. It's really smart, obviously. And so I think it's really cool and goes into that whole character thing. But from a plot device point of view, it's like Landa's like kind of half done with this whole situation.
Totally. I mean, first of all, notoriously, the Nazis were all fucking on meth at the end, including Hitler. But that's unspoken, you know? Like, yeah. I like how Quentin writes things and then almost like deletes them from the script, but it's
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
Like the whole backstory with Shoshana and Marcel, where you're like, I could imagine a world, like a headcanon, where she meets him, they fall in love, he brings her into the cinema and meets the owners, and then they take her in, and that's how she ends up owning the cinema. Whatever. Like, it's all there.
Yeah,
it's all viably
it's
there.
written. I mean, he's thought it all out.
Yeah.
Like, and so much so that the actors will get that information from Quentin. And Diane Kruger was talking about like how he would just throw stuff at her. Information would be coming at her. But when it came down to it, her performance was her performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just giving as much information to inform them of what possibly they could use. Diane Kruger was talking about how Tarantino directs and he doesn't watch monitors. He is right next to the camera. And so she's like, it was hard to get used to him being in the eye line. A lot of the time, he's right there close to you. And he's kind of like half giggling and half throwing stuff out.
Right.
And even Brad Pitt, I mean, Tarantino gets this sort of, you know, the script is the Bible and all this, like, you know, auteur theory sort of thing around him. But Pitt was talking about how during the making of the movie, Quentin was like cutting stuff out and like rearranging kind of like things to make them work better. Ultimately made for, you know, what is considered widely either his best movie or top 3, I think, in the canon. Yeah, I'm going to say it again. As an indie filmmaker, you got to go to extremes to get people to watch your short film. That's really what it boils down to.
You and Joseph Goebbels.
You got to, no, I'm talking about Shoshana. You got to, sometimes you got to lock people in a theater and
go, you will watch my movie.
Look, a lot of people out there would like to get some executives in a big theater. And
show them a movie.
So cool. Wizard of Oz, the Shoshana burning and everything, and the smoke and everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's clearly a reference. Such a cool visual cue. And
also the reference to we talked about it during the movie, the old British spy movies.
Yeah.
During the Mike Myers, Michael Fassbender scene. It's like, righto, old chap.
A scene that,
indeed,
when I first saw it, when like that kind of took me out of it. There were a couple ones. First time I watched it, I was like, that kind of took me out of it. Now I cannot imagine the movie any different.
Yeah.
Like if you took Mike Myers out of this movie, I'd be pissed. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie is how British that scene is.
So British.
And you got Churchill kind of like hanging out in the back, and he's just like, "How much is Churchill?"
Is that okay?
It's like whiskey, no junk in it.
Did I make it up that Christoph Waltz was like kind of an unknown actor before this?
He was. Well, no, he wasn't. He was a German actor.
Okay.
I believe a German actor. Yeah.
He speaks what? 5 languages fluently?
So German, French, Italian, English, and
that's it, right? At least in this movie.
Maybe I think he actually does speak a 5th language or something. He's what is that called? A polyglot?
A polyglot, yeah.
Yeah, impressive. Well,
I can barely speak one.
The most famous story about this movie is, you know, they're casting the movie and it's however many days into it, and Tarantino calls Lawrence Bender, his producer, and before casting is to resume that day, and he's like, you know what? I think I wrote a part that is uncastable. If we can't find him, I don't want to do the movie. I don't think we should do the movie. And 3 hours later, Christoph Waltz walks in, and he wows them, does all the different language things, flips da-da-da-da-da, and is leaving, and he's like, it was such a pleasure. He's very humble. He's like, it's such an honor to be in your presence. Like, thank you so much for having me. And they're like, no, thank you for coming in. And then the door closes.
You made the movie happen.
And they're like high five, and they're like, we got our movie, you know, that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
And Christoph Waltz is quoted as like saying, you gave me back my career. And I mean, more than that, I mean, I think it blew up his career even to a height
internationally,
no one could have ever foreseen. And Quentin was like, you gave me my movie. Without you, it wouldn't have happened.
And I mean, this one precedes a lot of his hits, so
he had conceived of this as as I think Leo was possibly going to be in that Londa part. if anything could work out. But it was just there's a lot to ask.
I mean, I could see that just because I've seen him do a similar character in Django, but it wouldn't have been. There's like this schoolgirl giggle that Christoph Waltz can do that I just feel like him and I would get along so well. Him and who was the last person I said I had a parasocial relationship with? It was Jeffrey Wright. I talked about how I'm sure he and I would be best friends if I met him.
You know what? I'm glad because I love Jeffrey Wright. So
me too.
You have every right.
Jeffrey Wright, Christoph Waltz.
And maybe you could waltz with Christoph. Give me the Oy vey.
Oy vey, good.
Christoph Waltz was talking about Tarantino directing him, and he was like, you have to kind of like realize when he's talking, it's not about you or him. It's not about egos. It's not about this. Tarantino always says that he's always talking about the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. And then in the next clip of this interview thing, it's like Tarantino saying like, the thing of it is, and he's always keeping the idea as the main, most important thing. I always hate on myself for saying thing in this podcast. And you know what? I'm gonna own it.
No, but here's the thing. Sometimes you say it and then you go, like the thing. No, and then you look at me like I'm supposed to know what thing he's specifically talking about.
That's different. That is a failure of communication on my part. If I'm talking about it in a contextualized manner.
If you're talking about it in a general manner of like, here's the thing, and then you go into anyway, I agree with Quentin on more than I thought I would. Having known nothing about him a couple years ago. One of my favorite filmmakers so far.
That is so cool because it is such a weird, like...
I'm not like other girls.
Well, yeah, see, that's...
Pick me. Choose me.
I just want to say...
Love me.
No, his movies speak to you.
Yeah, they do.
In a way that is unexpected.
I think I have, latent anger issues and... grew up in a, emotionally loud household, and I feel a catharsis when I watch his movies.
And you love plot. You love a well thought out movie.
Yeah.
And Tarantino is nothing if not
and I love a Western, I think. I love revenge. I love getting the bad guy.
You kind of love violence too.
Yeah.
He was talking about directing a movie and the kind of like thing that he thinks he has on other writers is like he's not just a screenwriter. Every time he's getting ready to make a movie, he has to remember how to make it. He's like starting from square one every time. So it's this nice refresher kind of, and he obviously has a skill set, but
I think that's also nice where it's like, I'm not stuck being one type of director. I'm like, oh, how do I direct again?
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, and so there's less of an ego there probably, and
then again, once again, the idea is king.
Yeah.
Everything serves the idea.
Yeah. And every time he says cut, he's known for being like, one more time. Why? Because we love movies. That's the big on set.
At least he knows. I appreciate that. As someone who's heard one more time 12 times at 3 in the morning, I'm like, you said that the last time.
It's like,
why? Because we're living the dream.
We're living the dream.
All right.
We love movies.
Fine.
And that about does it for Be Mean Fast Forward Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
Just punch a Nazi.
When you see a Nazi,
look, call a Nazi is the thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this one more time. Why? Because we love podcasting.
Podcasting.
Well, I'm sorry. And we're going to do this one more time. Why? Because we love movies.
All right, guys.
God.
Love you.
This was great. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. As always, it is a dark time in the world, but we have each other, and let's remember that, and let's take care of each other and enjoy your life. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Cheers.
I don't know why I felt like that was a necessity to say, but we're here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. That's Be Me Fast Forward. Godspeed.
We're coming up with so many bits at the end of the